Hello, hey boomer listeners. Welcome to Monday. I look forward to Mondays. I know there was a time when I was going to certain jobs that I didn't look forward to Mondays, but I look forward to Mondays now. It's my opportunity to be together with this wonderful, marvelous Hey Boomer community. And part of my promise to you is to bring you stories and information that will inspire you to live the best life that you can live. And today's guest will also help you strive to live the healthiest life you can live. So if you didn't know, March happens to be National Kidney Month, which is perfect timing. We're just squeezing Dr. Blake Shusterman here into the end of March with so much important information about kidney health. So my father had kidney disease, which is one of the reasons that I was so excited about doing this story today. He ended up on dialysis 3 times a week because when you have end-stage kidney disease, you're either going to be on dialysis or need a transplant. So he had a really good attitude about it, but being hooked up to a machine for 3 to 4 hours a time, 3 days a week, is exhausting, no matter how good your attitude is. But it's part of what kept him alive. And there was so much misinformation or lack of information about how to help him eat right. My mother and I were constantly doing research and trying to figure out what was the right thing. We did not get a whole lot of help from his doctors. Hey, Kathy, Gail, Bob, Ann, so good to see all of you. So let me tell you a little bit about what I found out about kidney disease. So according to the CDC, 1 in 7 or 15% of US adults are estimated to have chronic kidney disease. But estimated is the term because it said as many as 9 out of 10 adults with chronic kidney disease do not know they have it until it is pretty far along. It is more common in people aged 65 and older, and diabetes and high blood pressure are most common causes of kidney disease, with other risk factors that include heart disease, obesity, and a family history of kidney disease. So with my dad, and I have a cousin that also had it. So this is a very important conversation for me personally today, and I hope for all of you that are joining us. Just a reminder that we are 5 weeks away from our forest bathing adventure. That is where we are doing our mindfulness walk in the woods. We are getting registrations coming in, and there is only space for 15 people. 15. And so please go to the Facebook page and sign up if you think you want to go. It's May 4th. We're going to be at the Tryon Foothills Equestrian Nature Center. It's a 3-hour, slow, meditative kind of an experience in the woods, led by Angie Stiegel, one of our former guests, and lots of goodies are going to come along in your goodie bag for those of you who join us. So look for the event for the forest bathing. Also, I want to be sure that you all are getting the Monday email that will remind you of the links on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So wherever it's the most convenient for you or your friends to watch the show. So if you go to heyboomer.biz and subscribe, you will get a Monday morning email with the links to all of those 3 platforms. And then you will also be asked to share this with your friends so that we can continue to grow and inspire the Hey Boomer audience. And with that, I would like to bring Dr. Shusterman on. Hello, Dr. Blake.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. I am really, really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So let me do a brief introduction and then we'll jump right in. Dr. Blake Shusterman is president and physician partner at Carolina Nephrology, a 22 provider practice in Greenville, South Carolina. He is also the creator and host of The Cooking Doc, and I'm going to quickly show that, although we'll show it later on too. thecookingdoc.co is the website. He is also the author of a book, The Cooking Doc's Kidney Healthy Cooking, a modern 10-step guide to preventing and managing kidney disease. And we will tell you about how you can get that at a special rate at the end of this show. So he is, Dr. Shusterman is a certified nephrologist. He is the clinical assistant professor at the USC School of Medicine in Greenville and oversees the medical student nephrology rotations. He is a patient education advocate and the importance of diet in the management of chronic kidney disease. And his interest in diet and kidney disease led to his role as an ambassador for the American Kidney Fund's Kidney Kitchen, which sounds interesting. He earned his medical degree from Ohio State University and went on to complete his internal medicine residency and nephrology fellowship at the University of Virginia. And he holds a BA in Anthropology from Tufts University. So anthropology, how did you go from anthropology to medicine and then nephrology?
Well, yeah, it's not a typical background for somebody who becomes a doctor to have an anthropology degree. Right. But I've always been interested in different cultures and different rituals. And when I got into college, I knew I wanted to be a doctor at that time. And so you have to take biology and chemistry and organic chemistry and all these really scientific coursework. But I knew that I didn't want to spend all my time learning about science in that matter. And I knew that I would be basically focused on science for the rest of my life. So I decided to pick something that was a little less strenuous and kind of went with some of my interests in different cultures and just given me a nice background to get into medicine.
Yeah, and that's nice. I used to tell my kids when they were thinking about college, study what you love, because they can never take that away from you. So,
that's right. Yeah, exactly. So, if you're going to be spending your whole life doing science and medicine, might as well learn about something else while you have the opportunity.
Yeah, good idea. So let's talk about kidney disease. Okay. As I said, I have some history of it in my family, which is one of the ways people can be susceptible to it. But tell me about some of the causes. And the big question is it preventable?
So I loved your introduction because it gave both a personal history of kidney disease and then also talked a little bit about the prevalence of kidney disease because it is often a underthought about disease and diagnosis, and many people don't know that they have it. But the statistics really are that 1 in 3 Americans are at risk for kidney disease, and that 37 to 38 million Americans have some form of kidney disease, and 850 million people worldwide are thought to be diagnosed with some kind of chronic kidney disease. And most of the time, chronic kidney disease is a complication of diabetes or high blood pressure. So these are very prevalent diseases in the United States population. And the longer you have diabetes and the less control it's under for many years, the higher your risk of developing kidney disease. And the same thing goes with high blood pressure. So both of those diseases, which are prevalent in the United States, can lead to kidney disease. And that is why it's so important to know about kidney disease and to make sure you're being screened for it. So the other question you ask is it preventable? And the answer to that is yes and no. There are some types of kidney disease that are preventable. So especially if you're looking at things like diabetic kidney disease. You think about diabetic kidney disease, if there is a way to manage your diabetes well and change what you're eating and keep your weight at a healthy level so that you're not at risk for developing diabetes, that can often either slow the progression or sometimes prevent kidney disease from getting worse. There
Mhm.
are other types of kidney disease that it doesn't matter what you do, your kidneys are going to fail even if everything is done correctly.
Yeah, and that was kind of shocking, that statistic of 9 out of 10 don't even know. So are there not symptoms?
So, two things go into the fact that people don't know that they have kidney disease. The first is exactly what you mentioned. There are basically no symptoms of kidney disease until you reach that level where you have end stage kidney failure. Some
Wow.
people, yeah, it's really incredible. Some people early on in the disease will get things like swelling in their legs, or they may get a little more high blood pressure. But most of the symptoms, the really severe symptoms, don't happen until the kidney disease is very late in the process.
Mm.
The other thing that happens is that, and I see this every day in my practice, when I talk to people who are coming referred to me for their first visit, they often are surprised that they have kidney disease. And then I
Mm.
look back at their records and they've actually had some form of kidney disease for many, many years. And they don't know it because their physician or their provider hasn't told them that they have kidney disease, thinking that this is something that's mild. It's just something that kind of I'll watch in the background, and there's no reason for the patient to know that this is one of their diagnoses. So they'll either find out when they get to me for their first visit, which is often interesting, or they'll see it now on their discharge sheet or their office summary sheet, and they say, well, nobody ever talked to me about it, but I see it's listed here on my sheet.
Wow. So I don't understand why their doctors wouldn't tell them, because if they knew, then they could start doing some of the healthier things to at least manage it before it's hooked up to dialysis.
Yes, that's why. Yeah, you're right. I don't really
I don't
understand it either.
understand. Yeah. So some of the common misperceptions, right? So like I was reading in your book, cranberry juice. Oh, you have a bladder infection, drink cranberry juice, but the bladder and the kidney are different organs. So I'm wondering what are some of the common misperceptions that people have?
Well, that's a big one. The fact that when I often see people for their first visit, they often tell me that they've been drinking cranberry juice ever since that they found out they had kidney disease. When in fact, cranberry juice may help some people prevent bladder infections, but it really has nothing to do with the kidneys themselves. So that's a big one. The other big one that I hear is that you have to drink eight ounce glasses of water a day in order to protect your kidneys.
Hmm.
And that is really not the case. Most of the time, our bodies are very good at knowing when we need water. And when you need water, when your body needs water, it triggers a mechanism that causes you to drink. And so, if you have access to water, if you're not out in a really hot environment, you're going to be able to manage that and keep yourself hydrated very easily without having to drink, eight ounce glasses of water a day where you're running back and forth to the bathroom just because you think it's going to protect your kidneys.
So, so I do want to ask you about water, but before we go there, uh, you have this. Well, here's a myth, right? So I have this impression that many physicians, it's about the medicine. I'm going to give you drugs and that's going to make you better. And they don't necessarily talk to you about diets and supplements and, exercise, things that you can do to stay healthy. So how did you get into that? Where did that interest come from?
So you're right. A lot of physicians don't talk about that stuff. And part of it is because they don't get the training that they need in order to talk about those issues. Part of it is because those discussions, they take time. You can't, well, one of the things that got me into this was I realized that you can't say to somebody on the way out, you need to eat a healthier diet, come back and see me in 3 months, because
Right.
that's not helpful. It doesn't work. It's ineffective. And so and it's so much easier to, in addition to that, just prescribe a pill.
Mm.
It's just a little click of a button, they get the script and the people go with that. So that's one of the things from the beginning that I noticed, but there were other things as well. So my first day that I came into work in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm not from the South, but when I got here, my first visit to the dialysis center, in the lobby, I noticed that there were two vending machines. There was a soda machine and there was a snack machine. So, Pepsi's, 7 Up, ginger ale, all these really high sugar sodas on one side. And then on the other side, there's potato chips and Cheetos and Snickers and all these high sugar and high sodium products on the other side. And meanwhile,
in the dialysis center, this is right in the.
That's right, right in the dialysis center. Patients come in through the lobby, they see the snack machines that we are offering to them. Then they go back into the dialysis clinic, and there are doctors and dietitians walking back and forth saying, why aren't you eating a healthier diet? They're saying, cut out the salt, cut out the sugar. Meanwhile, we're setting it just a terrible example, selling it right there and kind of putting it right in their faces, and where we then have to, or not have to, but sometimes the physicians and dietitians will scold them on the inside for not eating what is right. So that's one of the things that I really noticed from the beginning, that we weren't setting a good example. The other things that I noticed were that people not only didn't know exactly what the healthy foods were for them, but they didn't know how to make them taste good. So I always think that if you want somebody to eat a healthy diet, if the food doesn't taste good to them, it's a losing proposition. You're not going to change anybody's mind if you're telling them to substitute plain oatmeal for the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit that they've been raised on. That's just not a transition that can be made very quickly. So you have to find a way to teach people to cook and to learn to like foods that taste a little different than what they've been raised on.
Yeah. So that brings me back to the water, though, right? So whenever you go on a diet, that's where I think this 8 glasses of water came from, right? Keep you flushed. But just plain water, it gets so boring, right? And then you tell me don't drink sugar drinks. So I was like, okay, well, I'll drink diet drinks then. So what do I do?
I hear this every day. People, especially from people that not only think that water is the most boring thing that was ever invented, but also that it tastes terrible, because some people don't like the taste of water. So there are lots of things that you can do. If you really like that carbonation in the soda, and you really feel like you need a little bit of carbonation, you can start with seltzer water. And then if you got to put a little bit of juice in there, you can add just tiny bit of fruit juice to kind of sweeten it. There's also those kind of no sugar sweetened seltzer water drinks that you can get, like Buble or something. And I think those are probably pretty good options for people who like soda. I often talk about kind of the quote unquote spa drink, where you take a pitcher full of ice water and then you slice up some cucumber or some lemon or some orange. And it's something that they'll often serve if you ever go to a spa, but you sit that in the refrigerator for a day or two, and that really gets the flavor infused in the water. And so it's easy to stay hydrated when you're drinking that, but you don't want to drink regular water. Then you can mix that up. You could put fresh herbs in there. You can put any fruit, strawberries, mint. So there are ways to kind of get the flavor of that water if you're trying to stay hydrated. That the other good thing is that black coffee is actually pretty good for most people. So if you're a coffee drinker, it's good.
I saw that black coffee, but what about when I want to put my Splenda in there and a little half and half? Am I still okay?
So as long as you're taking a little bit of Splenda and half with your coffee, and not like a little bit of coffee with your cream. If you're going in that direction, probably not so good for you. If you're one of the grande frappuccinos from Starbucks, that's probably the wrong direction if you want to stay with a healthy coffee drink.
Yeah, that's probably the wrong direction. It's just tastes so darn good, right?
Exactly.
I know. So some of the biggest challenges, like here in the South, we a lot like fried foods. We a lot of times have cooked our vegetables till they're thoroughly dead, or put some salt pork in there. So what have been some of the biggest challenges you've had to face with some of your patients?
Well, it's exactly that you mentioned. That one of the things that I realized early on is that people's taste buds are really accustomed to those kind of flavors. So the really fatty or the really salty flavors, and going right from a flavor like that to the bland flavor is a recipe for disaster. And so the two ways to do it are first to something I call change your buds. So you're basically trying to adapt your taste buds to new flavors, and that doesn't come overnight. People in their 40s and 50s and 60s, when they come and see me, and 70s even, they've been eating the same way oftentimes for that many years. So trying to go from that to a healthy diet in the course of a month is often impossible. So that kind of challenge of doing things quickly, I think oftentimes leads to failure. It's taken so long to either build up your taste buds in a certain way or to put on extra weight that it doesn't always come off fast or change quickly. And that's okay, because if you are at an age where you're trying to make those changes, every little bit counts. And the more you can go in a consistent manner, you can eventually get to a point where you've made just tremendous strides over the course of a couple years. It just doesn't have to come all at once.
I love that advice, because that is so practical, because otherwise you're almost setting yourself up for failure. Like, okay, I'm cutting out all sugar, all dairy, all fat, and then you have nothing left to do. So I love that you're so much more practical about it.
Yes, I try to be much more practical than buy a keto book and kind of go right from eating normally to all keto or something like that, where sure, you may lose 30 pounds in 2 months, but you're not going to be able to keep that off for the long run.
Right.
So we're trying to slow, sustainable changes that will stick with you for years.
Yeah. I wanted to mention your book because it's such an important book. It's more than just a recipe book. So the book is divided into a couple of parts. It talks about your reason you got into this. It talks about part of why the history of kidney disease, different ideas about the different foods we should eat before you actually go into the recipes. And then there's some beautiful pictures with the recipes, but there's even desserts that you can have, which I thought was great.
I couldn't make a recipe book without at least a few desserts. It felt wrong.
Yeah. So it's great. And I'm wondering how you have time for all of this. How do you have time to have a full-time practice? You have a family, you do cooking shows, and then you wrote this book. I mean, how do you have time for all of this?
Good question. And I honestly, I don't know how I wrote that book over the course of the last 2 years. It took a lot of time and effort. And I guess I just had I really had all this information in my head, and I was just kind of desperate to get it out to everybody. And so I took a lot of time over the last 2 years on evenings and weekends putting that book together. So it was certainly a lot of work, but I did find the time. What I took that time away from, though, is probably not the best. But
okay, so the other question then that I wanted to ask you about was the cooking show. So did you study cooking? Where did your interest come in cooking?
The only traditional training that I had in cooking really was just a few days at the Culinary Institute, where it was kind of a health and wellness cooking retreat in some ways. But I always really, a lot of my love in cooking comes from the fact that I love to eat good food. Honestly, if you want to eat good food at home, you have to know how to cook it. And I had 2 grandmothers that cooked. I had 2 parents that cook. I love to watch Rachel Ray in the 90s and early 2000s learning how to cook. And so because I liked good food and because I had such good influences, that really taught me how to cook. And then, when we were trying to figure out a way to reach people who have kidney disease, one of the things that we thought about was, my interest in food and cooking, and then putting it on a cooking show. And then, kind of the first time I got on camera to do a YouTube cooking show, we still have that video, and it was pretty terrible, actually. But I felt kind of comfortable in front of the camera, which was a little bit surprising to me because I'm not always kind of a camera ready type person. But because the information out there for eating with kidney disease is so convoluted and confusing, and because I didn't agree with a lot of the recommendations that I saw online, I thought that if we start from scratch and reach out to people this way, it would be a great way not only to boost the practice, but also to get information to people that was important.
And I love the YouTube videos.
Thank you.
Yes, because they're very comfortable now. I haven't seen the first ones, but some are with chefs, some are just you providing, and there's a couple with your daughter, which are just precious. I was telling you about the latest one I saw where you were making chocolate chip cookies, and she was so excited for telling us, well, this is probably the only time you're going to see us make chocolate chip cookies, which was just precious. Great. Yeah, so I really did enjoy that. But we never did get to answer my question about the artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
So can I drink a diet soda once in a while?
So I think most of the things once in a while are fine. I think that diet drinks are healthier than the sugar drinks. Most of the studies show that if you compare the two, that the risks of sugar sweetened beverages is much greater than the risk of the stevia or otherwise sweetened beverages. But I think there's still so much that we don't understand. So do those non-sugar sweetened drinks, do they change your taste buds so that you like sweeter things and tend to eat sweeter things for desserts? Or do they have a tendency to not quench your hunger the way that the sugar sweetened beverages do in some ways, and so you tend to eat more? So I think we are still trying to learn exactly how to incorporate those things into your diet. We know that people who have 7 or more drinks a week of diet soda have a tendency to have more kidney failure, but that may be just representative of the other type of diet that's involved when you're somebody who drinks that many diet sodas. So I don't know that there's any causal relationship. There's not necessarily a diet soda causes kidney disease, but there's an association with somebody who drinks a lot of diet sodas and the development of kidney disease.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
So the jury's still out, I think, on the diet sodas and the diet drinks, really. But I think they're better than
a lot of sugars. Yeah. I mean, you get your daily sugar in one Coke
Exactly.
Yeah. So in one of the write-ups in your book, you were talking about the challenge that some people face. You were talking about these cousins actually in the book, and they both had early stages of kidney disease, and one of them was able to really follow a diet and slowly wean himself off some of the foods, change his buds, all of that. The other ended up, there was some medical crises in the family, so he had to work extra hours, and I think he was a truck driver. And so it was almost a dissertation on some of the challenges that we face with our healthcare system the way it is. And I wonder if you would comment on that a little bit.
Sure. This is something that I think is coming more and more to the forefront in the medical community as we learn more about what goes into somebody's ability to change their lifestyle in a more healthy way. And it gets kind of lumped into something that's called the social determinants of health. And so it's all these things that go on behind the scenes and in somebody's regular life that have practical implications for how well they're able to maintain a healthier diet, or cook food at home, or afford their medicines, or take the time to exercise. Somebody who is caring for family members and who's working 40 to 50 hours a week may not have time to cook. They may not have, and there may be nobody to do that at home. Or if they lose their job and they don't have a lot of money, maybe they don't have the availability to get fresh foods to their doorstep, or to afford the medicines that they need to take to protect their kidneys. And I think the government and as a culture in the United States, we haven't done a very good job of making sure that everybody has equitable availability to medicine resources and healthy food and housing and all these things that you need in order to focus your time and energy on caring for yourself. If everybody's been through stressful periods of their life, and when you're going through those periods of time, you don't have time to exercise, or you don't care about eating a salad for dinner. You just go through McDonald's. And so if it's somebody like me who has these periods of time that last a couple months, but then I can get back on track because I have the other things that allow me to do that, that's fine. But there are so many people in this country, basically, that every day of their life is a struggle to just maintain the housing and the food and those things. And so they don't have time to get their medicines or exercise or cook healthy. And so those people a lot of times end up like that one cousin that we described in the book, who ends up with kidney failure because they don't have the support that they need to get their medicines and to take care of themselves. And a lot of time the medical community and physicians kind of lay blame to that person, when in reality that's totally inaccurate and just wrong.
But that's such a hard problem to solve. How do you help that person?
I don't know. I think that one thing that I try to do is we try to focus on little things. So maybe if you can't exercise, maybe we can just focus on cutting out a little bit of the salt in their diet. Or maybe we're just focusing on, gosh, well, how do I just get your medicines to you every month so you can take them? So we just try to focus on little things rather than saying, well, why don't you turn into the organic, 3 hour a day exerciser? That's really impossible for somebody like that to make a lifestyle that follows those things.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and the economics of healthy eating. I mean, sometimes it can get expensive when you're trying to get all natural, healthy foods.
Definitely. There are ways to do it that are cheaper, but oftentimes if you have to sacrifice something. So if you're getting cheaper ingredients or anyways, there's always a trade-off. So it's really hard to make good food in a timely manner for an inexpensive amount of cost.
It is. But your book, I think, gives a lot of good ideas that aren't difficult to make.
True.
And I think that your practical methodology of, just do it slowly, a little bit at a time, cut out one sugar drink this week, and then another one, or next month. Don't even, don't go week by week if you need to do it month by month. So I think that's really helpful.
Right. That's like my favorite example, because if you're going to quit drinking your sodas, think about, you have to do it all at once. But if I start now and every month I drink one less soda a week or something like that, in a year, I've cut out 12 sodas from my week of drinking. And so you can kind of let it go and let it go and let it go. But the sooner you start making slow changes, the quicker those changes will add up.
So just a couple of more things before I let you go. So if 9 out of 10 of us don't know that we might have kidney disease, what should we be asking our regular doctor about, how to check for that?
So a couple of things to screen for kidney disease. One is a urine test to see if you have protein in your urine. So they could just do that on a dipstick urine test. The other thing is to check what's called a metabolic panel. a basic metabolic panel or a comprehensive metabolic panel. And most doctors do this when you go to a regular visit, but the caveat is you have to go to the doctor. If you're not going to the doctor, you're not going to know.
Right.
And then they'll be able to calculate on that metabolic panel something called the filtration rate of your kidneys. And that will give you an idea for whether or not you have kidney disease. And then you have to ask your doctor, because as we talked about before, the doctors don't always tell you that you have kidney disease.
Right, right. So you have to ask. Somebody here is saying, what's a normal creatine level?
Creatinine.
Creatinine.
So it can depend on a number of things, including your age and including your muscle mass. But typically for a man, it's anywhere from about 0.8 to 1.2. And for a woman, it's anywhere from 0.6 to 1. It can vary a little bit up and down from there, but those are some generic ranges.
And is that something you would find in that metabolic panel you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so just ask your doctor about that. You have a special offer for this audience. Well, I think for anybody through the end of March for your book.
Right.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So if you're interested in my book, there are a couple different ways to get it. It's the Cooking Doc's Kidney Healthy Cooking. And if you go to my website, thecookingdoc.co, you can order the electronic copy, and it's typically $21.99. But because this is Kidney Month, National Kidney Month, there's a special code, the code Kidney Month. And if you put that in while you're buying the book, that will give you a 50% off coupon. So that's the way to get the e-copy, and there's a PDF available. You can also download it to your Kindle or any e-reader. They have the formats available for that. And then if you want the paperback copy, which is really beautiful, it's got professional pictures in it and charts and graphs and kind of relatively big print. The easiest way to get that is on Amazon.
Okay, so we can download the electronic copy by going to cookingdoc.co.
Correct.
You find the book, and then you enter this code Kidney Month, and you can download it for 50% off.
Correct. Yes, until the end of March.
Until the end of March, which is just a couple more days. Or you go to Amazon and get the printed copy, which is absolutely gorgeous. You're right. It is a beautiful book. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job. Please, check out the website anyway, and check out the YouTube videos. Just look for the Cooking Doc on YouTube, and you will have a lot of fun watching him come together with some of his recipes. They really are fun. I want to ask you if you have 2 or 3 takeaways for the Hey Boomer audience.
Sure. So I think we covered one of the main takeaways, which is you don't have to make all your changes for health at once. You've developed the current habits that you have over the course of many, many years. And those are going to be difficult to break, whether it's in the way that the food tastes or in the way you exercise. And kind of maintaining slow, steady changes can help you make sustainable changes for the long run. So I think that's one takeaway. Another takeaway is that if you want to start eating healthier, learn to cook a few little things and learn to make that food taste good, because it really does make a huge difference in the ability of you to stay with a healthy diet. If your food tastes good, then you're going to stick with it for much longer.
It's the hashtag change your buds.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, it's true. When you start to cook differently, at first you're thinking that it doesn't have any flavor and it's not as good as you're used to, but you do develop a taste for the real food instead of for all the other stuff that they put into the food.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for what you're doing. It's such an important thing. And this diet is healthy for everybody. It is not just for kidney health. It's really healthy for everybody. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Now I'll tell you about my guest for next week. Her name is Heidi Sifkas. And Heidi is now living in Hawaii. She grew up in Wisconsin and was in Florida for a while, but she is an author and an adventurer. And so many years ago, I think it's probably like 10 years ago now, Heidi's world changed instantly when a 1,000-pound tree limb fell and hit her on the neck, the back of the neck, broke her back. And during her recovery, she found out that her husband had been involved in a long-term affair. So not only was her physical body broken, but her emotional spirit was broken. And so she writes about her recovery in that during that time of when all balls drop. That was the book about that. And then she wrote 2 more books, and she has this new philosophy that she is living by called Look Up, look at opportunities, look at what's out there. COVID has certainly slowed down some of her adventures, but she is now looking forward to getting out in 2021 and inspiring other people with some of her stories. And so I think it will be a fun and inspiring conversation for next week. I always like to remind my folks about a quote from C.S. Lewis, and he said, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." I so appreciate you guys joining me today. Sorry for some of the technical difficulties. I know your time is valuable in choosing to tune in and be part of the Hey Boomer community. I am so grateful for that. So I look forward to seeing you next week for more inspiration and more learning. Thank you so much, Dr. Blake, for what you shared with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks again for having me, Wendy.
No, it was my pleasure. And my name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer. And I'm going to have to just back out. I can't even end it. So thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.